switch jobs every year and a half. So I've worked at probably 20 different companies. That's why consulting is a really good fit for me now. Anything from like a 10-person startup to a 200,000 person organization. And while reflecting, I decided I was going to put together some frameworks to talk about how I think about delivery and how I find success in delivery. So that's basically the context for our conversation today. I'm going to focus on how do you deliver fast and simple, and how do you get rid of churn? So not customer attrition churn, but churn in your product development environments. In that way, you unlock margin and time for innovation and strategic thinking, especially in this AI era. So, feel free to put questions in chat. Emma and Lauren will kind of scan those throughout. They'll interrupt me when appropriate if someone's really blocked on something. Otherwise, hopefully, we'll have time at the end. Okay, so if you fit any of these criteria, you guys are probably facing some sort of delivery challenge. So I'm confident that you guys will get value today out of the just ideas we talk about here. So feel free to get ready to take notes, and you're welcome to take screenshots as well. Okay, so hopefully you guys will really feel like you're leaving with practical real life tools that you can use. We want to kind of go beyond theory in this discussion. I've built these frameworks with technical and product talent that essentially help build the web over the last 20 years at places like Zappos, Twilio, Apple, Roblox. We've been through multiple waves of web-based technology, and we like to think of ourselves as the OGs of e-commerce. We work with a variety of clients from modernization projects to 0 to 1 builds. So that's why I'm really excited to introduce you guys today to the churn-free delivery framework. So this framework, it's primarily designed for mid-market size companies and enterprises. And it is the fastest way to create margin and maximize impact to your business without sacrificing time for innovation. So again, clarification on churn for those who just joined. This is not customer attrition, turnover churn. This is churn in your product development environments. So we do have limited time. It's not already 7 past. So I'm going to try to speed through as quick as I can and try to give you guys as much value as I can today. But then I'll share at the end, actually, Emma will, how you can get help further at the end. You're also welcome to connect with me on LinkedIn and reach out with any questions or feedback after the fact too. Of course, we're not going to solve all your delivery problems today, but hopefully these seeds that I plant are things that you could take back to work and hopefully find some progress, even if it's small. Okay, so my biggest action to you is right, commit to taking action today, and every little thing that you do will get you closer to simpler and faster delivery. So I'm going to circle back again. Emma will talk about our distilled delivery blueprint at the end, but if you have to leave before, go ahead and copy this URL down now, and then we'll talk a little bit more at the end about this. I promise to keep that short though. Okay, so if you're here, you probably are experiencing one of these big challenges. So I'm curious for those of you guys listening, raise your hand or put in chat, but let me know as I go through these challenges, which challenges really resonate with you guys the most in your working environment. Okay, so we've got the nonstop back-to-back calendars, right? You're going to schedule meetings and you just like cringe because you can't find a time slot for weeks because no one literally has a slot of time in their calendar. Or maybe the wrong work is getting delivered, right? Like there might have been a communication gap, something didn't trickle down, something didn't trickle across, and now you're releasing product or features that really you didn't need to, and you've wasted effort. And that leads to people playing the blame game and pointing fingers, and that adds more meetings to your calendar, just creating more churn. And ultimately, churn is just killing your productivity. Right now, you have personnel conflicts to deal with. You have to speak to why you're shipping the wrong stuff. And there's 50 different ways churn is manifesting in your product development environment. Does that resonate with anyone here? I don't know if I saw any hands. Okay, well, I'm going to assume it does because you attended this webinar. Okay, so with a bunch of problems comes massive opportunities. So as a product manager, right, problems mean opportunity. So now I'm going to walk through, right, what the future could look like if you address some of this churn. So again, put in chat or raise your hand which resonates with you guys the most. So one, you want margin in your schedule, right? Like imagine waking up and having time to like drink your morning coffee and plan your day and get ready for all those meetings that you have. Or maybe you decline a meeting because then you have some focus time. Or maybe you're known as the highest impact team, right? Your team's hyper productive and really, really moving the needle where you want it to. Or perhaps you get roadmap clarity. Like, I know that sounds very easy. It's very hard for a lot of organizations. And honestly, this is a hint that this is some of the lowest hanging fruit on how to create margin. And then my personal favorite, what I'm really passionate about when I work with various clients is eliminating all organizational waste. I really can't sleep at night if I know teams are working on the wrong stuff or people are working on the wrong things because of, the 20 different reasons why that could happen. And knowing your team's doing the right work and doing it in a sustainable fashion, that's that's kind of the joy right there. So before we dive into how to make these opportunities a reality with the frameworks I'm going to walk through today, I'm going to take a little detour and talk to you guys about how I became really passionate about avoiding any and all inefficiencies in all aspects of my life. So, 12 years ago, I stepped out of Beth Israel Medical Center in Boston. I was with my spouse. It was a bluebird day. Fresh air felt amazing because I was just in a basement level research office with a well-known specialist. The air was stale, and I was so nervous for that appointment because a year preceding this moment, my life had slowly been on the decline. One day I got a headache, it wouldn't go away. It was timed perfectly with a new job I started, and within a month, I just couldn't stop napping. I had to leave work early and earlier because my brain was so foggy, and literally the wrong words would come out compared to what I was thinking in my brain. It was really scary. And then I couldn't be upright for more than 4 hours a day. So I was horizontal, as I called it, a lot. Turns out I have POTS, postural tachycardia syndrome. It's a blood circulation disorder that essentially doesn't push blood to your brain effectively. So I had one really bad week. I quit my job once I figured that out. I got a positive pregnancy test. Go me, really good timing there for number two. And I decided I had to uproot my life and move from Salt Lake City to Boston because, over a decade ago, there was only about 3 or 4 cities in the United States that treated folks with POTS. Now there's a lot more with long COVID and that being mapped to POTS. But it was worth the move. I wanted my energy back more than anything. I wanted to get back to an active lifestyle of ski patrolling and running half marathons pregnant. And I really wanted to keep up with my toddler, be social again, and get my career back on track. So here I was outside this medical office, totally unimpressed with the bedside manner of this doctor. I uprooted my life and I walked out with a printed slide deck. So literally on paper, I had like a PowerPoint after this like guy's unimpressive bedside manner. And he wanted me to just like go all in on this extremely slow graded exercise program. And it was essentially meant to reset my cardiovascular system. So my husband and I are like, ugh, do we do that? Do we take this guy's advice? Or do we just keep spinning our wheels looking for someone or something else to help? I was really fixated on one thing he said. He said, your only job in life is to put any energy you have into this bike program. So, like, I'm talking literally 7 minutes a day, I would bike. And I would prioritize that over being a mom. And that felt nuts. I hated that advice. I was super skeptical, but it was the only chance I had to find my energy. So, I decided to go all in. So over the next year, I methodically prioritized biking every morning as my top priority. I like literally couldn't miss more than one day a week. And it took me 9 months to get to biking 45 minutes upright. I had to start recumbent at first and then sub out 3 minutes. So it was incredibly slow, but slowly I started to get my energy back. I was like, turns out this uninspiring doc was, I think he was onto something. And then I reached a new normal. I was present with my kids again. I started to train for a 10K and I didn't have to be horizontal anymore. So through this journey, I became really, really good at setting boundaries and ensuring I don't waste energy on anything that isn't important to me. So, a life with pots now, over a decade later, I've learned it's all about conserving energy and maximizing how and where I spend my time. And when I was finally able to return to work, I realized that this directly maps to product development teams and organizations. People couldn't believe how easily and instinctively I just set work-life boundaries and how I would focus on the minimum effort needed for maximum effect. And now it's habitual. And if I don't, I might go back to those early days where I couldn't be upright for more than 4 hours. And instead, if I do stay ruthless, then I could camp with my family. I could go watch soccer games. I even did a 28-mile backpacking trip to Havasu Falls last month and with like 40 pounds on my back. And it felt incredible. So, even with the skepticism that I had about this doctor, I learned through this really hard journey that the only way to find my energy and create margin in my life for the things I care about and for my work was by eliminating unnecessary effort and ruthlessly prioritizing. So, whether you have a chronic illness or not, right, time is short for everyone. What about this revelation resonates with you guys? And yes, it was very like low zone exercise to get my energy back. Spiking the adrenaline was not good for POTS, to answer the question. Why I think it's Kia. Thank you. Can you guys relate to that though? This idea that time is finite and you really have to be someone that ruthlessly prioritizes. Yeah. Yeah, making the decision and commit to it. Yeah. Thanks, Elizabeth. Okay. So for the sake of time, I'm going to keep going. There's going to be other times to engage, so get ready for the next time. Yeah, time is very precious. Okay, so this is why I created the churn-free delivery framework. Again, it's the fastest way to create margin, maximize impact without sacrificing time for innovation. So rather than telling you guys like step by step the perfect way to achieve this, I'm actually going to talk about what not to do. So I'm going to go through three big mistakes. And if you guys stay on the lookout for these three big mistakes and make sure they don't happen to you, you're going to be one step closer to churn-free delivery. Okay, so mistake number one, believing churn's unavoidable, right? The skepticism. So I'm sure you've all felt this, right? The processes that never end, right? One new process starts after one was just rolled out, or roadmaps that change before they even start, right? You set it in December and like January 1st, it already has a new project. And you don't, or when people like shift teams all the time and you're constantly reorging, so you have no time for stabilization. Um, have you guys experienced that before? Can you relate to it? You just nod. See a couple nods. You could nod no too if you want. Okay, so if you don't address this type of churn, you're going to apply more energy than necessary to get the work done, and you're going to create wasted effort. But if you do address it, you're going to have time back for strategic thinking, and ultimately, you're going to have lower operating costs. So, why do so many people make this mistake? Most leaders, like, right, they care, they don't want there to be churn. Leaders really underestimate what it takes to tackle churn. It takes an incredible amount of discipline, and that's what I learned through my POTS journey, right? Churn and chaos, and it like seeps into your ways of working, and the bad habits become habitual. So it's really critical to attack it from multiple angles. So I saw this hands-on at a large enterprise that I was working at. They had a product with over 300 million monthly active users, and a new department was scaling up from 5 to 30 over 2 years. So what started off as like a really, really quick, high-performing team deteriorated into what I call overload land, meeting overload, process overload, document overload. Approvals took months. There was communication breakdowns all over the place. And ultimately, there was just a lack of trust across teams. And you'd be sitting on Zoom meetings and people were just like numb, kind of disassociating in real time, right? Or focusing on Slack and not really listening. And then the meetings aren't productive. We've all seen it, right? And gone were the days of the fast, flexible team. This is exactly why I created this framework. It's really hard to fix what you can't see. So we've got two primary axes here. So on the y-axis, it's about team clarity, having clarity about doing the right work. So basically, right, what is getting built? And on the x-axis is speed. So how, like, is your team empowered to work autonomously and move fast? So that's about how you do the work. So if you're not good at either of them yet, you're in the delivery churn trap. And then if right, your team's pretty good actually at picking roadmap items that move the needle, but you're just like really slow at producing stuff. It's what I call the slow roll. And then you guys have all heard this term, probably the feature factory. John Cutler coined the term, and it's basically you're prioritizing feature quantity over actual quality of what you're producing for both the user and the business. But if you're good at both, you're in a place called distilled delivery. It's a lovely place. That's the goal. Depending on your organization or your area of influence, right, you may focus on one or the other. When it's in your power to address both, it's best to tackle them sequentially based on your circumstances. Okay, so where are you on that quadrant, right? What delivery challenges, think about it, are holding you guys back? What's holding you back from that distilled delivery? So if you just want to put in chat, where are you? That will give me context for the rest of this webinar to kind of get a sense of where you all are at. Oh, nice. Feature Factory, Churn Trap. Okay. Thanks, you guys. Appreciate the engagement there. That's helpful. Yeah. Elizabeth wins for most creative comment. Okay, so first we're going to dive into clarity. So, what to build and how to get the clarity for teams to be able to move fast. Okay, or excuse me, to make sure they're delivering the right stuff. So, we're going to again talk about this through the lens of a mistake. So, shipping product that doesn't move the needle. So you guys have probably seen this. So anyone in the feature factory, right? Maybe your team works super well together, you have speed, but what comes out doesn't align with the company goals or user needs, more importantly, right? Or what about those cases where you ask a software leader, oh, was that investment worth it? And they have no idea post-launch because they don't even have it instrumented to actually have the data to tell you if it was a good ROI, right? So some symptoms of this, right? Leaders are just kind of shooting from the hip on where to focus next. PMs are going on intuition more than hard evidence. Or maybe your organization over-index on a small amount of customer input, or appeasing the loudest customer. So if you don't address these things, you're going to apply more energy again, right, to move the needle than necessary. And again, there's going to be more wasted effort. You're also going to get a very bloated, hard to use, and difficult to maintain product, right, in the feature factory. But if you do address this, you're going to preserve your margin for other things. So for 4 years, I led a team at a $75 billion public company, and I'll never forget spending 7 weeks trying to get a single user interview script approved just so I could talk to actual end users. Like, that's all I wanted. But it took forever, right? Almost 2 months. Turns out in this organization, roadmaps were really driven by the whims of leadership and not actual validated ideas. So there I was, like stuck, just trying to get this script approved. But the catch was I also had to show coding progress, right? The team actually had to be doing demos and showing, some sort of front end already. And so it was a complete disaster because, right, you're taking your best guess on what the team should work for while you're trying to like find the problem that you're solving based on the leadership request. Yes, it was a nightmare. Exactly. So, since right, this particular project wasn't driven by hard evidence, everything downstream suffered, right? There was overconfidence in from leadership that what we were supposed to work on was the right thing. But there was a lack of organizational buy-in for discovery, right? You have to show that progress fast. So basically, a tool was built that never landed and no one adopted, and literally millions were lost. So in the end, went back to the drawing board several years later, pivoted the product strategy, narrowed the target audience, used actual discovery data, and leveraged a 3P tool that I had suggested in one of my original slide decks like 3 years prior. And once it was customized to their use cases, it landed. Oop, let me move back a slide. Hold on, Katniss. Okay, so it seems really simple, right? So why don't people do it? Well, I think a big factor here is time, right? A race to get something out, to show progress. Or a lot of organizations just like thinks discovery is a waste of time, right? But if you don't invest that time up front, you're going to waste a lot more downstream. And a quick disclaimer here, this focus on evidence is predominantly for known wins and sure bets, though it's still a consideration in product experimentation cultures. Okay. And over the years, PMs, right, they've used a lot of techniques to find the next best thing to work on, whether it's like shadowing someone in customer service, conducting user interviews, having regular meetings with the sales team, right, where you get a pulse on what the customers are saying. Or maybe you've advanced to having like an in-app survey. All of these, though, are really manual. They're only partially scientific, and results could be pretty squishy or biased. So I could kind of see why people are tempted to skip discovery, honestly. It is time consuming. But now with AI, things can get a lot more precise, right? With a lot less effort and arm tech leaders with that evidence they need to push back on requesters when something's not going to hit the bullseye. So getting this level of clarity is what I call the precise product method. Shout out to Katniss here. People in the past have said I remind them of her. I'd love to think that's true. Jury's out, but she's got one hell of a shot. Okay, so let's dive into the precise product method. So the first step, so identify feedback across your organization. Where does it live, right? Salesforce, Zendesk, Jira, Google Docs, interview transcripts, product usage data. That's the easy part. Then you're going to need to consolidate all that, right? So eliminate siloed feedback data. This is actually a pretty hard step because you're either doing it manually, which takes forever and it's really hard to keep it up, or it's a commitment to invest in systematizing it and getting all that data centralized because that data is structured and unstructured. And then you go on to the impact formula. So determine what's important for your organization. Is it customer acquisition? Is it customer retention? Is it account expansion? What lever, right, needs to be moved? This is actually really, really hard. Organizations always pick like 10 levers, right? Huge tendency to overcommit. And then what happens? You underdeliver. Really try picking one. It's amazing how productive an organization could be when you narrow the focus. Okay, then this is where it starts getting fun and where it's an actual good use case for AI, right? Like not in the buzzy way. This is an amazing way to dramatically cut costs, right? Use AI to help with that analysis and help with that prioritization. It could help correlate the evidence and help you prioritize what is that sweet spot, right? And again, it's an investment here, but once it's in place, it pays off exponentially. And then that sweet spot that I'm talking about, coupled with the human touch, I don't want to ignore, right? There's a lot that goes on around this, right? You gotta check the quality of the output. You've gotta, and if you're doing it manually, it's just a huge effort. You got to still use product sense and product taste. You have to use second order thinking. That's something I really love. I won't tangent on it for the sake of time, but essentially that sweet spot plus all of that human interaction is when you get to what I call the fulcrum point, the precise point in your product to create a disproportionately positive impact. And if you follow this framework, if you could actually reach this ideal state, it looks simple, but simple is not always easy. You will find product clarity and more margin. It undoubtedly will increase. It's not an easy journey though, with stakeholder alignment, and oftentimes you get conflict along the way that you have to manage. It's really hard to align on that impact formula or that North Star and align on what that fulcrum point is going to be. So if you don't have the knowledge or resources in-house to put something like this in place, again, there's AI tools that actually can do this. But if you're more of a 1P, right, build it yourself kind of organization, take it one step at a time and you'll get there. But the right approach really depends on your unique environment. So Teresa Torres, a fellow Bend, Oregon resident, that's where I live, she talks about here that it's really hard to switch this outcome mindset, right? We spend so much time talking about outputs, right? The features on the roadmap. It's so easy to focus on the features and then become a feature factory. But getting to that fulcrum point for all your products with a clear impact formula, that's the ideal state. So let's look at a use case. So we're going to talk about Lauren. So Lauren's a product manager. And she works at Penny. So Penny AI, it's a learning management system empowering enterprise clients to give their direct sales field consultants sales enablement tools. So think network marketing brands. So their core problem is they're stuck in the feature factory, right? They're shipping features, targeting the loudest customers. They're not moving the needle. There's no clarity on where to create impact and how to do it. So PMs are just left shooting in the dark. So Lauren, she starts by identifying all her feedback sources. So in this case was product board, Zendesk, Jira, Confluence, sales data. I'm sure there was more, but those were the key systems. So she manually consolidated all this in Google Sheets. This was kind of pre all this exciting new AI tools that you could be using. And if you're still doing it manually, don't. And she corralled what the proper impact formula was. So this organization decided their North Star was going to be decreasing churn of new users. And then she took that, right, manually sorted this Google sheet, had lots of alignment discussions, and it helped them find their fulcrum point. They were gonna make the hard trade-off decisions to focus just on these two areas, onboarding and new user education. It sounds really easy, but it was actually really hard for her because there's so much human touch in steps 3 and 4. But after she did it, this is the results, right? 67% decrease in new user churn just from staying focused, right? And having to determine that fulcrum point up front. She delivered early and under budget because she had something to prioritize against, and it was easy to make those scope trade-off decisions. And then her best practices were rolled out organization-wide. And ultimately, right, they saved money, got operational margin, you got time back. It was the right impact for the business, and people were happy. That's my favorite part. So I'm curious, you guys, on a scale from 1 to 10, how clear and impactful do you think your work is at your organization? So 1 is your work is not clear or impactful at all, and 10 is you have super high clarity at your organization. 4, yeah, that's 6. Oh, nice. 8, okay. 4, 7. Okay, quite a range. So for those who aren't in the 8 to 10 range, what's one thing you could do today to improve your score? Just kind of think about it. Feel free to drop it in chat. So I'm going to go back to the framework here. So if I jump back, right, maybe your organization needs to spend more time determining the impacts that they're looking for, maybe have less impacts, right? Maybe the evidence isn't consolidated. Maybe there isn't a universalized kind of central prioritization system, faster feedback. Thanks, Gary. Yeah, the consolidation step's hard. Thanks, Sarah. Yeah, that's the one I see a lot too, Joe. Organizations spread their focus across way too many things. Okay, so we talked about clarity, right? How to get clarity on what you work on. Now let's talk about how to work. How do you find speed in your organizations without sacrificing quality, of course? Okay, so we're going to do that through our final mistake I'm going to cover today. Over-indexing on perfect performance, right? You guys all know the one. The people who are working like nights and weekends, or they're just like sharing Google Doc after Google Doc just to show that they're being like really ultra productive, right? Night after night, you have new docs you need to review, and everything has to be super detailed, or maybe it has to be really perfect before you're willing to demo anything. And basically, right, things just slow down, right? Documents are too long, processes are too detailed and take forever. Or what about the people who want to estimate every user story, right? And track super detailed team velocity to get the perfect plan, right? Talk about planning taking forever if you're going to that level. So who can relate to this? Yeah, the hustle signaling, exactly. Oh, it's so stressful seeing it come in at night, right? So if you don't address this, again, you're going to apply more energy than necessary. You're going to create wasted effort. And it's my favorite, any semblance of balance is gone, right? That's what I need to tackle the most with pots. And that's what I have to stay laser focused on and work. If you do tackle it, you literally can work less and enjoy work more. Yes, I'm telling everyone they have to work less. So, quick example of this. So, I wanted to get one Slack channel created, right? That would take what, 3 minutes. I wanted a Slack channel for casual user feedback, but it got blocked by a stakeholder. The stakeholder wanted to look at user feedback strategy holistically, right? So this was hanging in what I call perfectionism purgatory for a long time. The project changed owners 3 times. Every time there was a new doc to review, right? Lots of doc revisions. And then we would be in meetings and people would be like, wait, what's that action on the Trello board? Wait, why are we doing this? And then you'd go in circles and I have to re-explain it's because I want one Slack channel. And then, but we need to think about it holistically. And it took years to set up this single chat Slack channel. I'm not exaggerating, years. It cost the company thousands of dollars of wasted effort, right? But more importantly, it was years of not getting user feedback, which obviously didn't help them find their fulcrum point either. And it's really easy to land here. I'm a perfectionist. So let's talk about the focus funnel. So the focus funnel helps you distill work down to the right level of effort while still meeting your goals. So quick analogy here. For anyone into gardening, even if you're not, I'll tell you what it is. Think about deadheading. So if you don't deadhead your plants, right? If you don't remove the dead flowers, or maybe your tomato plant has like gotten aggressive and is trying to shoot for way too many tomatoes. So sometimes you have to take away some new buds, right? Because you want that plant to put all of its energy into the right amount of work, right? You want the flowers to be able to reach their full bloom and not waste their energy on the dead flowers or the extra, baggage that you don't need to think about, right? So that's essentially what this is. This model is for. It's making sure you put your energy into the crux of an activity and shoot for less. All right, so let's talk about this, the focus funnel approach. So first step, inspect your ways of working. So I'm going to reiterate here. So this is about speed and how your organization works. The other axis was about what your organization works on. And technically, you could put the concept of scope through this funnel, but I'm thinking about things like any meeting you have, any process you have, any document you're writing, put it through this funnel and take each of those items and crystallize the objectives, right? So for anything going through, what are the goals you're trying to accomplish? So far, these are pretty easy. Then you need to distill the work. So distill the effort to the smallest amount but you still meet your goals. So this is my favorite because it sparks a lot of good debates, like a lot of philosophical debates, right? The one pager or the PRD, right? There's you could debate this stuff endlessly. So you obviously want to time box that as well. But you need clear communication and good negotiation skills. And when you are determining what that smallest effort of work here is, I have the AI boost again here, right? Think about how AI could help simplify these processes and these artifacts for you. Okay, the hardest part, next step is you have to break habits, right? You need to break the organizational habits. You got to make sure that you, your team, the leaders above you are okay with doing the bare minimum, right? As long as you're meeting the goals and objectives. But that's hard, right? You have to manage up and sometimes get permission and buy-in to do less. But once you're good at this, right, and it's habitual for everything coming in on your calendar, in on your inbox, in Slack, you're putting through this focus funnel and you're always stopping yourself before reacting, right, and making sure you're doing that smallest amount of effort. Once you're doing that habitually, that's what I call MVE. This is what I'm most passionate about, right? You're doing the minimum viable everything. It's the bare minimum effort to still meet the objectives. So if you do this, right, you're going to go from chaos to less yet more focused work, and you'll increase margin along the way. So this quote, some of you have probably heard of it, but I just love it. It's originally from Saint-Exupéry, and later famously adopted by Eric Raymond as a core Unix philosophy principle. So perfection is achieved not when there's nothing more to add, but when there's nothing left to take away. It's beautiful. I love it. I love taking it away, right? You got to take away all the extra. Okay, so now we're going to dive into a case study. So this is what I'm going to call a negative case study. So this is an example of what you don't want to do. I will talk about how things got back on track, but everyone loves a juicy, dire situation. So Jackie walks into Hooli. She's a program manager, kind of product ops manager. I'm using Hooli, shout out to Silicon Valley, TV series because of NDA reasons. I can't share the client's name, but think a top entertainment enterprise with about 5,000 employees. So their core problem, they were always shooting for perfection. Always. The perfect solution, the perfect process, everything. Oh, hold on, let me go back. Okay, so they were a classic delivery churn trap, right? They had stalled out decisions, no centralized prioritization system. Let's see what else. They basically just had no momentum, no speed. Everything was just stuck. So Jackie kind of assessed the situation. The current thing that she was trying to put through the funnel was a centralized feature request process and prioritization system, right? Like, sounds easy, standardized way to request features across internal and external users. That's all they were trying to accomplish. That gap was really easy to identify. But going through the funnel, the rest of the way was really hard. Stakeholders could not align, right? They couldn't decide on the process, the scope, what tool to use. The scope kept expanding. So, like, think voting on features as a feature, that was deemed gating. That's not gating for a feature request system. It's nice, but it's definitely not a must-have. And so they were just in this analysis paralysis, right? Just striving for this perfect solution. So MVE was out of reach. So what happened? They spent 2.5 years churning, trying to get a centralized feature request system in place. They had so many false starts. They tried 3 different tools and processes. They had no buy-in for each along the way from the actual users. And essentially, without the solution in place to enable clear feature prioritization and trade-off decisions, the team continued work with unclear objectives for years, which led to more waste and really frustrated, unhappy people. So when I gave this webinar once, someone asked me, well, what happened to Jackie? Did Jackie leave? So it is really hard to swim upstream, right? When you're trying to get stakeholder buy-in for organizational change for so long. So what Jackie did was she teamed up with an executive sponsor who helped raise the focus of the priority of the project. And that really helped drive alignment because she was able to get time with people to get this consensus and get the buy-in. So between that support, because sometimes you do need that, and then drawing a hard scope line, the proper tool selection, it finally crossed the finish line last month. I wouldn't say they've broke their perfectionism habit by any means or that MVE was reached, but this is a really realistic example of how something so simple can actually be really, really hard. So I'm curious, again, a quick reflection. In your organizations, how focused are you guys? One, you're not focused at all. 10, you're super focused. Oh man. Kia, I hope I'm saying your name correctly, but you've got some great numbers. You might not need to be at this webinar. Okay. Oh, Gary, nice. Okay, 424. I'd love to dig into that with all of you and ask a whole bunch of prodding questions, but I'm going to keep going for the sake of time. We got to make sure we have feedback. I got 5 minutes to finish up. We're almost done. So what's one thing you guys could do today with this framework to help you guys get your scores higher, get closer to an 8 to a 10? So going back, is it about getting more clear on the goals of what you do every day? Is it getting alignment on what is an okay amount of work? I had one place that we had a 60-point checklist to release anything. Oh, that was not good. Things took a really long time. It felt really good when I got rid of that checklist. Yeah, less stuff, get more focus, more discipline. Yeah, it takes so much discipline on any of these things. These seem so simple, but discipline's so important. So to review, so what we've covered, right? We covered the churn-free delivery framework. That's the 2x2. The goal is to get from your churn trap to distilled delivery, right? That's the heaven. We talked about the precise product method, how to get clarity on what you're working on. And we talked through the focus funnel. That was how to get alignment on how you operate and to get more speed in your development, in your product development. And these are really, they're tried and true frameworks. Again, designed mostly for mid-market companies and enterprises, just because the larger a company is, the more churn you have. But if you stick to these frameworks and you use them, you will deliver the right products as fast and as simple as possible. So I'm curious, what have you guys found most valuable today?
I'll share.
Great.
I
Thanks,
think
Elizabeth.
honestly, as you mentioned, these are for certain size companies, but I always recognize the similarities of how this can help people's lives just in general. Again, how clear is someone on what their overall objective is in life? How quickly are they working towards that? Or, so that's why when I answered about the slow roll, it was very much for me because I think about my life and I work for myself too as like a combined effort and really just being so clear about what it is that I want and not falling into perfectionist tendencies and being able to break up with these habits that really slow me down or fuel my limiting beliefs and things like that. So thank you so much for sharing this.
Yeah, thanks, Elizabeth. Anybody else? Uh, we are going to have feedback at the end, so I'm going to keep going because I have 2 minutes. Lauren said I had to wrap up right at 10 till. Okay, so again, the goal of these frameworks and with churn-free delivery is to do less, right? But you're doing less better, deliver smarter and faster, and ultimately have time to innovate. We need to innovate right now with all the AI tools coming out. I can't keep up. So if you guys are serious about implementing the ideas that we talked about today, you will find time back in your schedule. You will start delivering the right work, and your team will become highly productive and viewed as high impact. And most importantly, what warms my heart the most is you'll minimize wasted effort, right? For both your work drain and your personal life drain. So we brainstormed some initial steps, right, along the way of things that you could do today. But if you need help defining a path to get there and you want to take action now and you want to get support, I'm going to pass it over to Emma really quick to talk about our distilled delivery blueprint. Oh,
It's all good, Kim. I'll talk it through. Hi, friends. So good to see you all. Thank you so much for your engagement today. This is an invitation to serve the community. If this is something that you are focused on your teams, increasing margin on your prod ops teams. If you personally, anybody here leading product or engineering teams today? Yeah, if you've got like a hunch that something's off, but you don't really know what it is, feel free to step into this free call with me. I'll put the link in the chat. And really, we're here to serve. Identify those immediate opportunities to create margin. And as Kim said, do less. Is anybody else here trying to do less in life? Anybody? Yeah. Amidst collapse, it feels like the only thing to do is to do less, not more. So hope to talk with a few of you. Feel free to share with your teams if you believe it would be of value. And I will go ahead and pass it back to you, Kim. Thanks.
All right, so whether you guys take this program or not, if you apply these principles of the churn free delivery framework over time, you will find balance. You will get focus. I joke, but you'll have time to actually empty your bladder between meetings or maybe sit on the back deck, have lunch, take a break, right? Smell the fresh air, go on a bike ride midday. That's what I do to get my strategic juices flowing. You'll get margin to wind down at the end of your day and get ready for your next. So you could close up work and be present for, your family, your pets, your friends, whoever. Most importantly, you won't feel overextended, though you'll still be reaching your goals, both personally and professionally. And that balance is so important for everyone. So thank you guys so much for your engagement today. I really appreciate it. As a product manager, I love feedback. So let me jump back to the feedback slide here. And Lauren, I'll pass it over to you.
Yeah, we just wanted to gather feedback from everyone. So if you could take a minute and capture the QR code here, or go ahead and put the link in. That would be great. Do we have any questions?
Yeah, we got 9 minutes.
Yeah. Got one from
We
Kia.
also-
I can message
Okay.
Sorry for the background. What prompts are you using to do essentially those AI-driven drafts of your science? So the clarity and for the feature prioritization?
Well, they're going to be really complex. I think the biggest thing is feeding it all the right context and getting all of that data in. I could actually follow up with you after on some example prompts that we've used. I think that's probably the best way to do it because they could be pretty detailed.
Cool. That'd be awesome. I'd really
Yeah.
appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something we could send to the whole group if you guys are interested in that. And honestly, I mean, even just doing it anyway is going to be better than where we are today, right? Whether you're using Claude or Chat GPT, like as much context as you could feed an engine and then ask, right, what are the main themes coming out of this, right? What are the categories that you see? This is my type of business. These are the objectives for the business. What categories of feedback map to this? Like just starting somewhere and leveraging AI is going to help you more than doing anything manual today.
Are you organizing those into projects or like shared projects amongst the different functions or product areas and then by generating additional things based on documents, or are you just doing the one-shot box?
You know what? You're cutting out a little bit, Kia. I think you said, do you share these prompts across team members? No. Maybe you could write it. Oh, yeah, by project. So when we start projects, we'll often create like a GPT specific to that project with all the project documentation and right. So you're kind of giving the context along the way. So yeah, that does really help. But sometimes it's by product. It depends on your organization.
Kim, I'll jump in real quick as well. Kia and to the team, we hosted an event similar to like this in New York. It was a half-day workshop, mostly with CIOs and CTOs talking about this. And we crowdsourced their AI use cases for roadmap development. Actually, what we saw was that people were using it mostly for coaching and managing up and down to present cases for why things should be a priority. The missing link for a lot of these AI prompts is if you do not give it role or context on negotiation. Tell it, I'm here to negotiate. I'm here to pitch. I think I personally see a lot of PMs drown in the tactics and forget about the business strategy and business intelligence that is required to break the habits, to create a culture of MVE, and to really hit that fulcrum point. Does any of that land or resonate? It was interesting insight to me. I was like, great, let's just use this for all the coaching and managing up and down that we all do all the time and convince people that, we know what matters most. Kim, there's another question here for how can you use this framework for early stage product, maybe to find clarity in a pre-product market fit company? Such a good question, Natine.
Yeah, well, you definitely need to be talking to users if you're pre-product market fit. So I think ways of working, the focus funnel, that's just, those are good practices to establish from the start. But for the precise product method, I mean, you're gonna have a limited feedback, right, to put in. Like you're not going to already have stuff in, a CS tool or a sales tool, right? HubSpot or Zendesk. So it's going to be a lot of, I think, manual collection and whatever you're doing. You could do a lot of industry research. But I think that I would need to think through a different framework for pre-product market fit. This is really for products that are out there and there's already a lot of feedback to get, and you're trying to figure out where to move next. That's a great question, though.
Any
Thanks.
questions? Y'all, I did drop Kim's LinkedIn if you're not connected with her already, so that Kim will follow up with Kia, and then we'll get some prompts that Kim can share with y'all in Sidebar. But we get lost in the shuffle, correct? So feel free to just connect with her on LinkedIn and be like, hey, I was in the session. Please let me know once you and Kia have had that conversation. So good. Thanks, Elizabeth. I'll drop it in there, yeah.
Yeah, thanks for coming, everyone. And hopefully you guys all got a chance to do that feedback survey. I love feedback. I need feedback. Everyone needs feedback.
We love it.
Constructive feedback's better than positive. Got to make sure we keep
And
improving.
if y'all liked this session, we're actually going to be hosting another session in August with y'all. I'll be working with one of our PMs to do some teaching and training on vibe coding. Is anybody here hands-on vibe coding right now? Anybody? Yeah, maybe. If it's of interest, please feel free to join us in August. Check the Sidebar community for that. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. It was really nice to meet you all-ish, and definitely reach out and connect. Have a good